This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everyone. You may have heard this word before. It's been coming up a lot. Might not even understand it. Let's call it a basic understanding of this word, inflammation. Now, when you have an injury, maybe you hit your hand on a counter or something like that, sometimes it becomes inflamed. Now think about your body, inside your body, and inflammation being caused by things you're eating, your environment, stress, and things like that, and how it can severely or majorly impact your life. We're going to dig into inflammation today, kind of break that down, give you better understanding and what we can do about that. She is a registered naturopathic doctor. Just so much information comes from her every time we get together with Dr. Laura Brown, who's back with us. How you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Steve. How are you?
Well, and hearing this word for the last couple of years, actually, it's been on my radar, better understanding it. The first thing that I learned and sticks with me is, and I want your opinion on this, the number one cause of inflammation, or one of the major causes, is sugar. True or
Mm,
false?
it is true.
That's pretty scary.
It is true. It is scary because how much, we tend to have in the population a lot of sugar in the processed foods and the takeout foods and just that natural inclination to want something sweet. So it is, part of the bigger picture. Now you mentioned like when you hit your hand and you get something inflamed, like inflammation isn't a bad thing. It's actually a very proactive thing when it comes to healing the body. Inflammation brings redness, which is blood flow, and swelling, which is, white blood cells and things coming around to help, clean up the mess and clear out the garbage and then bring healing into the situation. So short-term inflammation is really, really helpful. It's when we get this long-term chronic inflammation that we see its instinctive link to chronic disease.
Mm. And yeah, it's a great point to bring up that it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's your body reacting to something that it's not happy about, simply put,
Mhm.
and it's doing something to correct and or maybe heal, like the injury. What happens? It swells up to protect and then allow it to heal. Same thing happening inside our body. Just hearing that the sugar thing, like you said, so many of us, Halloween tomorrow here in the States, sugar, candy, all of that.
So
Um,
much.
right, right. And think about everything that we eat. What's actually going on? Let's say you eat a fair amount of sugar. How is it impacting your body in terms of inflammation, or how could it be?
Well, first of all, I mean, a little bit of sugar is fine, and when we
Sure.
get it naturally, through fruits or through a little bit of honey, which is I always say a very nice medicine, but we don't take like that medicine all the time. Um, those things are okay. It's the chronic consumption of large volumes of sugar. Our sugar consumption could be, maybe a teaspoon a day. It's kind of like salt. You could have up to a teaspoon a day and it'd probably be fine. Sugar up to a teaspoon a day and it'd probably be fine. But my goodness, you pick up, a can of pop and it probably has a lot more than just a single teaspoon, and you're probably having a lot more than just that pop.
Yep. I'm
Yeah.
gonna go by memory, and I don't drink. I haven't touched regular soda in decades. And occasionally I have actually, I was at a meeting yesterday. It was a board meeting for a charity, and they provided lunch, and there was a can of diet soda. I'm digressing, but sharing something, backing up something here. And it was diet root beer, no caffeine. I was like, it's been a while. Let me treat myself. And I've often heard that the artificial sweeteners actually trigger your appetite. So as I'm sipping it, I'm almost wanting to now eat what was in front of me, where prior I was going to eat. It was about time, get it over with, get done. I have things going on. I felt myself getting hungry drinking the artificial sweetener. I know a digression, but I actually felt it like for the first time ever. Like it was almost like it was just saying, you need to eat now. You need to eat now. Counterproductive too, where you drink a diet soda. They're in regular sugar soda or pop. I believe it's like almost 50 milligrams of at least carbs in that currently.
Yeah, you see a lot of them like 25 to 50. And I mean, what the sugar is doing is it's affecting the microbiome. It's promoting gut permeability or leaky gut. It's
Mm,
affecting the immunity. It's influencing nutrient absorption. It's often leaving you feel hungry because you get those spikes that go up and down. So you're eating more than you need to. So now you're overeating
yep.
and it disrupts healthy levels of blood sugar. So over time, this disrupts the liver metabolism and the health of the liver, which is our major detoxification organ. And so many of our population now have, like, I think it's 20 to 30%, don't count me on that because I'm going just from memory, are walking around with some form of fatty liver disease. And this is a precursor to your cardiovascular issues and things going on there.
Mm,
And it's not just the sugar. We look at the artificial sweeteners, anything that has been stripped of its natural fiber and condensed spells trouble. Okay. And the artificial sweeteners aren't spiking the blood sugar, but they're doing all that other damage, all that weakening immunity, damaging the gut lining, disrupting healthy biorhythms and nutrient absorption, things like that. So it's both the sugar and the artificial sweeteners causing it. Sometimes we see other things like wheat causing inflammation.
mm,
There is over the past number of years, I would say probably about, more than 50 years, there's been a lot of change in the agricultural kernels that we're using for our wheat. They're mass produced, they're GMO modified. They have a lot more DNA component in them, a lot more gluten in them than they did back when we were before, say back in the 40s or 50s. Um, so there's a big change in the actual type of kernel of wheat that we're growing. And this is done because the gluten is the primary factor they're looking for. It creates stretchiness and helps make things bake up nicely. And they're breeding things so they can stand up in the field and be more easily harvested. They're breeding things so that they have more availability for um, the nutrients to be healthy, and it's not always there because sometimes they're spraying them with the pesticides and insecticides, and that comes in with the inflammation with what we might be consuming as well on some of our agriculture. So keeping that in mind because that will cause inflammation.
mm.
Then there's individual things. Some people find dairy causes inflammation for them, or nightshades, which are your tomatoes, your potatoes, your eggplants, and your bell peppers, and then some other types of plants as well. Those can be commonly found inflammatory, especially in like a rheumatoid arthritis or something there. But any food can be inflammatory depending on the individual's predisposition and what's going on. If you've got leaky gut, then your body's probably responding to a lot of different things because the gut lining is permeable and things that should be filtered and changed and altered before they get into the bloodstream are getting there prematurely, and the immune system is going out with all its fire trucks trying to rescue you from that.
You just revealed a lot, especially when it comes to wheat. And yeah, GMO, engineered, we've heard that. But something as, I don't want to say ridiculous as, but to use chemicals and change the makeup of something so the wheat grass or whatever stands tall in the field so that they can cut it easier, which is compromising our health. Like just, I had no idea, that was also a part of it. In terms of how they're changing what we eat. When we're talking about wheat and wheat products, when somebody has a gluten sensitivity, is that inflammation?
Yes. Anytime anybody eats a wheat product, and there's over 100 different proteins in wheat, gluten just being one of them,
Hmm.
gliadin is another one, there's gluteomorphins, the list goes on. Um, Anytime we eat wheat, it will take up to, for the average person, up to 20 minutes for the damage in the gut to be healed. For those who are sensitive, it'll take up to 5 hours. And then it's time for the next meal. And guess what you're probably eating if you don't know. So if that constant damaged, meal after meal after meal leads up to a very dysbiotic and damaged gut. And this is what's happening in some of these conditions. Wheat is essentially not meant to be digested in the small intestine. It's meant to be fermented in the large intestine. And this is where we thought it was so great because it feeds the microbiome. It's just that our small intestines have become so sensitive from a number of different factors that there's a lot of damage happening up there. And regardless of the goodness that may happen down lower for the fermentation and feeding, the large part of our microbiome, it could be doing more damage than good. And, when people have like a short-term viral inflammation or, you get the stomach bug or the stomach flu, sometimes you just can't have that wheat or that dairy or those sugary things for a little while, even if you normally are okay with them, just because the gut's so sensitive,
Mm.
right? So it's being mindful of, where the status of the lining of the small intestine is, which is the upper part of the digestion where we absorb our nutrients.
Mm. So let's look at alternatives. And, we talk about honey, which can be a sweetener. I heard this week that agave is actually not so good for you. And
Mm.
please tell.
So agave comes from a cactus, right? And it's essentially very, very high in fructose, just like high fructose corn syrup. And fructose bypasses our natural digestion and goes straight to the liver. So it hits the liver. We don't actually get the same kind of alarm signals in our brain of what we've eaten. And it's very damaging to the liver. So it causes a lot of inflammation there.
Wow. So that again, this is the reverse of what we would consider because I'm saying, oh, instead of putting sugar or an artificial sweetener in something, agave, it's natural, it's going to be great, it's good for you. Not so much, apparently.
Not so much. And the whole idea of how much sugar we eat is absolutely crazy. The reason why we often crave it is because of this overgrowth of candida in the body. Candida is a naturally occurring yeast in the body. And when it overgrows, and it typically overgrows after a course of antibiotics or long-term use of tetracycline type medications or birth control medications. How much of the population is on birth control? Think of all the females on birth control. And this over time change in the microbiome favoring the Candida species, which is now giving more way to more gram-negative bacterial species, which increasingly increases the inflammation. But Candida is very special in the sense that it preferentially feeds itself by making you crave sugar. So the higher levels of Candida in your diet show up with these sugar cravings. You've had a full meal, but now you just need that something sweet. What's with that? Because you should be satisfied. This is often a sign of candida overgrowth. That together with maybe a white coat on the tongue or red beefy rashes and warm, more moist places and cracks and folds on the body could also be headaches or joint pain. This type of thing are really good signs. So the sugar craving can be from what's going on in your gut microbiome. So what we do is naturopathic doctors is we work on curbing the sugar craving appetite by treating the microbiome. And then there's also some nice botanical herbs you can take that actually take the taste away from the sugar. So if you eat something sweet after taking this herb, you now don't even taste the sweetness. So the whole dopamine high you get from eating the sugar isn't there. So you're just it's kind of like a meh, like, oh, well, that wasn't exciting.
Mm.
So over a couple of weeks period of time with some intentional focus to eat less sugar, it becomes more easy. But sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine.
Wow.
8 times. And this is what we're, handing out at the doorsteps tomorrow night. being that we're doing this on October 30th. What we
Yeah.
hand out at Christmas, what we hand out at Valentine's, what we hand out at Easter, what we hand out at birthday
Mm.
parties, right? This is something, and because we get so addicted to it, it's a dopamine hit. It rewires the brain. And the I think together with the sugar and all of the tablets and the games and stuff the kids are playing with, it's really rewiring their brain for the short-term immediate hit of gratification. And we're losing that distinctive pleasure of just the simple things in life.
Yeah. You don't need to be on a tablet video game. You don't need to have that hit of sugar if you look at life in a different way. Uh, Whole other podcast right there. But
Mm.
w- for those of us that have dinner and say, well, I got to have dessert now, do you think that that is a ritual, or more times than that, it's the body's response to candida and what we're talking about here?
It's got to be both, right? Food is so inherent in our environment as a social enjoyment. And we often think treat is eat and treat are, don't you just want to treat? Don't you treat yourself every once in a while? I always hear
Mm.
this. Well, don't you treat yourself every once in a while? And it's not that dessert is bad. It's just what are you choosing and are you always eating it? Is it a part of a healthy diet? Is it a whole fruit? Is it a baked apple with a little cinnamon, right? Nothing wrong with that. Is it some blueberries and chia? Nothing wrong with that. It's giving us fiber, giving us antioxidants, giving us lots of phytonutrients, giving us calcium, magnesium. But what's in sugar other than calories?
Nothing. There's nothing else there. What do you think about those who gravitate towards something sweet? And, we identify comfort foods, mac and cheese being one of the number one comfort foods because it takes you back to a time of comfort when you were a kid. Now, when we look at these other things, cookies, cakes, things like that, I know for me, every, I don't know, 2 months or whatever, I might have ice cream. Always love a chocolate shake. There's only one reason. I go back to my childhood because that was kind of my thing as a kid. I was an overweight kid, by the way. Um, but every time I have it, it's like, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. Ah, different place. They're making it different. This is going to be great. I'm not really satisfied. It's just like, yeah, that was all right. Let me try it again in 2 months, whatever. Do you think a lot of it is sugar and comfort? The dopamine hit, I got that. But do you think it's a comfort thing too?
It's got to be a comfort thing, and we're trying to recreate that feeling of love, care, or appreciation within our heart with something external. And this is often an issue. We really ought to seek for that internally within ourselves to find that comfort. And that comes into spiritual aspects of things. When we're seeking for external validation or external gratification and things, those things are idols and things that are replacing our own spiritual connection that we need. As a child, often that connection would be with a loving parent or, that parent providing a meal in a very warm, loving environment.
Hmm.
So yeah, it can hit all those nice things, but treat doesn't always eat. Treat or feeling special or feeling warmth, comfort, love, care, appreciation is something we have to garner within our heart. And we have to go inside our heart to find it. It's not something that we get from external means.
Which is, again, this is another podcast, but when we search for things that are external, where it's inside of us, if we just go searching a little bit, and it's a journey for everyone, you don't need those. We don't, dare I say, relationships, family, it's all yes, we need that. We crave that.
Yes,
That's who
yes.
we are. But all you really need is you.
Well, we need ourselves. We need that soul connection to whatever we call in the universe to be our God. I have my own beliefs that they're very based, and I believe in God, and that's very big. That doesn't mean that I don't need community. That doesn't mean that
Of
I don't
course.
enjoy and I don't enjoy a celebration with something special that's within my wheelhouse of digestion. Certainly, doesn't discount that,
Sure.
but as an emotional fill up. I have to be very careful. I remember a point when, I always used to feel hungry and I'd be like, oh, Laura, like, what is it? Are you anxious or are you hungry? Because I used to eat when I was anxious all the time.
Mm,
And physiologically, the messages that come up from your body for anxiety and hunger are really, really similar. And the brain goes, am I anxious or am I hungry? Well, I'm going to pick hungry because who doesn't like to eat? Until you start to unpack it and going, am I anxious? I just had lunch. I had a really good lunch. I should be full. Like, why aren't I satisfied? And be like, why do I feel like eating? It's like, oh, well, what thought just ran through my mind? They're like little chipmunks, like scurrying across the patio with their nuts this time of year.
yep.
It's like, what was that just went through my mind? I'd be like, oh, I remember I said something to somebody and I'm feeling bad and I'm wanting to soothe that bad feeling. So I'm wanting to eat because maybe that will bring me comfort. And it's like, wow, is that answer going to be in the bottom of the cookie bag or the chip bag or the ice cream? It's like, no.
Nope.
I'm going to eat that whole thing, and then is the answer there? Nope. It's the answer to your problem is not at the bottom there. So it's like, okay, let's back it up a little bit. What was that thought that went through the mind? How do we address that? And then finding healthier ways to go and address that so that we can actually fix the problem as opposed to just put a band-aid on it and end up with a bigger problem later on from, a physiological standpoint, both from the stress of the anxiety that wasn't properly dealt with and also from eating things that I didn't need to eat,
Mm.
whether they were healthy or not, right?
That is so relatable and so true. And I've even found myself doing the same when I have to send let's say, a challenging email, or I'm working on a proposal or something like that. And it's like, yeah, let me just walk away from it for a moment, which is great. Where do I walk? To the refrigerator or the cabinet. And just, I mean, it's almost like you want to prolong what you need to take care of. And now you talk about anxiety and stress and all that, food triggers. Now also add in uh, lack of sleep and dehydration. Also going to trigger you to eat, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're feeling hungry, think, am I thirsty? Am I anxious? And then do I really just need to get some sleep? Because, eating more right now is really not going to help me stay awake. The body has natural circadian rhythms. The gut has circadian rhythms. Sometimes we just need to sleep. Go to bed.
Yeah. Go to bed, bypass the kitchen, go to bed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Get some
wow,
sleep, and you'll probably, those problems that you're having problem solving or the things you're really slow working through on a good night's rest, you're going to be like, eons ahead of how you're functioning the next day.
completely. I know we pivoted in a few directions here, starting with inflammation, but all connected and also important. And these are the realizations that you bring us to live healthier and holistically. How do we connect with you if somebody's looking to, start down the journey of a healthier life?
Well, there's the book Beyond Digestion, How Gut Health Connects to the Mind, Body, and Soul. That's available on Amazon platforms worldwide, Steve. And then there's my website, which is drlaura.m.brown.com. That's DRLAURA, M as in Marie, BROWN.com.
Thank you for today and all that you bring. Even some of the realizations of the wheatgrass, and I'm blown away by even hearing that. I shouldn't be, but I am, and all of it. I appreciate it. Looking forward next time we get together.
Excellent. There's lots of blogs on my website and in order to find more information on some of those topics.
We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.